Hi everyone. There's a wave of women becoming more deeply devoted to life, to themselves, and choosing to change the trajectory of their lives in powerful, intentional ways towards greater harmony with the earth and their own inner truth. I would say I'm one of them. As part of this human experience, I've always felt a deep longing to know love, real love, within my own heart and in a relationship. That longing has been a compass for me. I knew it has always been my birthright to experience a beautiful life and a conscious, healthy relationship. A kind of love that feels different from what I saw growing up. I dearly, dearly love my family. And at the same time, the romantic relationship that my parents shared was not an example for me. And over time, I realized that this desire wasn't just about another person. It was leading me deeper into myself, to the sacred work of cultivating harmony within. This path hasn't been linear, it's been wild, mysterious, and deeply alive, and it's a non ending journey. But the more I listened to the whispers and trusted my inner guidance, the more I began to meet other women walking this similar path of devotion. Alexia is one of them. She spent many years in the film industry as a successful producer until she felt the call to step away and follow the deeper pull within her. She said yes to the unknown, to the mystery, to deep prayer and surrender. And last spring, she entered external union through marriage. Today, Alexia mentors women to reclaim their feminine essence, their power, and their capacity to co create romantic unions rooted in devotion and legacy. What I love most about her story is that it was never truly about finding love outside of herself. It was about meeting herself in the deepest way possible. And that is the most nourishing and fulfilling experience we can never have as a human being. From that place, life becomes a mirror. This conversation is an offering that reweaves our understanding of relationships as sacred responsibility rather than being something to make us feel just complete. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin. Alexia, welcome. welcome,
Thank you.
welcome on the podcast. Such an honor to have you here today. Um, yeah, I read your writings online on your platform on social media, the heroine's journey, right? And you were sharing about how you came into external union and with your beloved, and also coming home to yourself, and all the initiations and challenges that you have been encountering on this path. And first of all, I want to say I really, really loved reading your story because I could sense the depth, right? Your depth and the depth with which you walk life and your honor life. And yeah, so just thank you for that, because I really felt that through your writing, and this is what just gave me this idea to invite you on the platform so that you can share your wisdom and your experience to people. So first, I would love to begin with the journey of inner union. So this path of coming home to yourself, right, before meeting your beloved. And I would love to ask you, what did that journey look like for you?
That's such a vast question.
It is.
But I love that you're asking it because it's such an important step. In many ways, it's the most important step. And when we are in that sort of like valley of inner union, longing for something else, maybe longing for something more, it can definitely feel like um, not the most interesting or not the most important part of the story. And when I think about it in retrospect, I have such a tender, like, part of my heart for the few years where I was single and went through a lot of like ups and downs and like beautiful lessons and also disappointments and a lot of things. And that was such a maturation process. And it is through that process that I was brought to a place of such intimate connection with myself and with God and spirit. And when I think about it now, I yeah, it's like my heart ached in this beautiful way because it was such a beautiful season in my life.
Yeah, so I understand from what you shared that this journey really shaped your life, your field, and your readiness before coming into union, external union, right? And after that, you've met your husband in such mystical ways, and
Hmm.
through your story, I saw how deeply you followed the whispers of your soul, and even the subtleties every single day, and like all of the details. And yeah, could you share with us this beautiful story, how you met, how you got married, and maybe like this, the journey that you went through. And I remember, like, what comes to me right now is you sharing about following your soul from the place you were living in, and you moved, and going to
Yeah.
the retreat and all of this. I'm like, this is mystical, this is insane. I just like, it's meant to
Yeah.
be heard for real.
Thank you.
I love
Yeah,
it.
it was an initiation. And so going back a little bit to the inner union process, because you were asking before, how did that come to be? Um, it started 4 years ago after the worst breakup of my life, and I was I was really shattered. Like I was in a million pieces. And the reason that I feel like sharing this piece is that I sometimes come across people, women that are in that place, which can be so painful. Like literally, you're in a dark tunnel and you have no idea when it's going to stop. And if there's one thing that I would if I could tell something to myself from 4 years ago, it would be, I know how much this hurts and how much this sucks, but it is what is necessary, because it's the one thing that really woke me up. I feel like most people have this story of like when they had some type of big awakening that came after a big pain. And oftentimes, going through something really painful is is the one thing that we need to move through, because it was what had me question um, a lot of my programming, a lot of the way I related to people, a lot of the ways that I would give my power away, a lot of the ways that I would get attached way too quickly to an idea of a person, and like untangle all of those things that essentially had me create relationships that were not healthy for a ton of different reasons. And after that ensued,
I was
huh?
gonna say, I know that.
Yeah, yeah, we all do.
We
And
all do.
also, by no means am I perfect in the way I relate today. I don't think that we need to try to be like so spiritually perfect or anything like that.
Hmm.
Yet I had to go through a series of dating experiences, a lot of, that really allowed me to experience myself and to see how I was playing out a lot of those patterns, a lot of the ways that I was abandoning myself and not really knowing what was my standards and my desires and all of those things. And eventually came to a place where I did not ever um like I was never able to let go of this idea that I wanted to be in a partnership, that I wanted to have this beautiful magical union. Because
Hmm.
that's also something that we hear sometimes, like we have to be completely free of that desire, and I don't think that's true. Like I think when a desire is a soul desire, something that's connected to your dharma, your destiny, it's never going to go away. But what I was able to surrender eventually was um, the timing, or the control, the illusion of control. You know, when you're like on dating apps and you're swiping, swiping, swiping because you're like, maybe the next one, maybe the next one, or, you know, whatever. Um, this internal longing that was so strong, it became desperate and it became painful. And I was able to reach a point where the longing was still just as strong, but it was not painful. It was something that became a sort of like an inner sanctuary where I met God, where I could really let myself blossom. And all of a sudden, there was no more rush. And there was a desire of knowing who I was, like knowing what would happen if I really let myself the space and the time to fully bloom. And really, yeah, asking myself, what does it look like if I really start living for me? And through this hunger for partnership grew really a hunger for um, getting to know myself deeply, like getting to know who am I exactly under all of those layers, all of those things that I've been clinging as my identity or things that I thought that I was. And it also came through a lot of clearing with toxic relationships and family dynamics and things like that that had shaped me in who I thought I needed to be. And all of a sudden, there was like a lot of anger that got to be released, a lot of sadness. And when you reach that point where you feel like you can finally live for yourself, there's this real curiosity of like, what am I going to find there? Like, if I really give myself the space to explore that, what am I going to find there? And that's why the need for a partner is still there, but it's not painful because you start feeling more full of yourself. And of course, I met my husband very soon after that.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of things that comes to me right now, but yeah, the it's interesting, right? Because we all have, not all, but I see more and more women having this deep yearning of external union, coming into union with a man and experiencing a relationship that feels divine and mystical. And it's so profound, right? As you shared, it's a yearning, it's a desire, it's holy, right? It's here. It has been seated in us. It comes from the depth of who we are. It's deep embedded in our womb. So, how much can we honor that? And at the same time, yeah, you just reminded me the importance of being in that balance of honoring that
Hmm.
and being in that place of trusting God.
Hmm.
It's not of our business when it's going to happen. The point is for us to experience life in
Hmm.
union with ourselves. And I just remembered this moment that I had, a profound moment when I felt like so deeply emotional, and I cried, and I said to myself, all I want, all of what I'm yearning right now is being with myself. I'm
Hmm.
yearning for more of myself, more of my expression, more of more of myself. That's it. This
Hmm.
is what actually feels like the yearning is so, this yearning, it represents that, like I'm looking for that within myself, beyond everything, beyond the union, beyond, because this idea of relationship, because I could notice in my on my path when it started to sometimes to feel like a despair, like
Yeah.
a waiting, like feeling like a weight instead of feeling nourishing.
Hmm.
So I love that you speak on that. It's so important, such a beautiful reminder. um yeah, there are many directions I want to I want to take right now. Maybe on there's I remembered that you shared about speaking your boundaries with men, on your journey
Hmm.
of inner union, and I feel this is a huge yeah, beautiful, huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you declared, so I just took note of it. You declared that to men that you were meeting, you said, I'm not available for casual dating or casual sex. I'm preparing for a union. And that touched me because, yeah, I've been living that too. And it's not easy to come into that space of
No, it's
deeply
not easy.
honoring your truth and just speaking it, but not from a place of, this is what I want. It's like really feeling that truth within ourselves. And so I want to ask you, yeah, what are the types of reflection that you have been receiving from the men, and how did you felt?
I mean, the when I arrived at that place energetically, and when it was not a performance, right? When I was telling men I'm not available for this, I'm preparing myself for deep union. It was so embodied that the responses that I got from men was honestly amazing. And I think maybe at that point I was starting to attract different types of men. And this was a few weeks before I met my husband. So I was already like in this sort of like vortex, you know, but um yeah, they were so respectful. For the most part, they were like, wow, that's amazing. I love that you said that. I love that you respect yourself like that. Um, and there's actually someone that I saw for a few weeks who's still a good friend now. And we were like dating, but it was completely platonic. And he was so respectful of my intention of celibacy and my intention to like wanting to figure out if someone is my person before I engage with them, that I could see from him and other men that I met this deep respect, this deep reverence. And I knew that it was coming from the fact that I was finally respecting myself. And yeah, men are going to reflect that back at you. Like it's it's really amazing. And I can talk more about what it took me to get to that place because, like we are saying, it's not easy, and it took me a long time to get there.
I would love for you to share that, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I think relationally, I'm coming from a place of chronically abandoning myself, abandoning what I know I need, what I know is true for me. Um, I think for the longest time, I didn't even know what I needed. I didn't even know because there was so much of me that was frozen, so much of my heart that was disconnected from my womb, so much. And we're brought up in this culture where it's so normalized to casually date, to casually have sex with people that we have just met, you know, things like that. Um, I generally thought that when I would start dating a guy and we would be intimate, and obviously I would start getting attached and getting ideas about what this could be, and then there wasn't the response or the follow through in the connection that I was hoping for. I thought that there was something wrong with me, right? I thought that, oh, I get attached too quickly. Like this is another thing that I need to heal. And I would get into this chaser role, right? I would try to do everything perfect, everything right. Um, I would just like bend myself out of shape in so many ways. And I didn't understand at the time that us getting attached to a person with whom we're intimate, and I'm not even talking about sex, like there's a lot of different types of intimacy, but it's like it's a normal biological female thing to do. And until I was able to fully see that in a much like in a much more like sober way, I kept being um I don't know how to say it. It was almost like my desire for connection was so intense that it was taking my decisional power from me. I feel like for women in so many ways, it's almost like a form of addiction. And I see a lot more women in the feminine space talk about emotional sobriety, which I think is so important. And that was actually a very intentional step that I took. I was like, for a while, I actually don't want to date because I'm like, why do I write my goals on paper? Like, why do I say, okay, I'm not going to go on a date. I'm not going to engage with that person unless like X, Y, Z. And then I do it anyways. Like, what the hell? What, what is wrong with me? Why do I claim some things and act in a way that is completely different? Why there was like this major misalignment in my own internal integrity. And that was it took me a while because it was such a hard thing to look at. It was so painful, and there was just a lot of shame there. But until I really went there was no way for me to, yeah, again, be in alignment between my desires, the things I declare I wanted, and then act in a way that was upholding those standards for myself.
Yeah, so there was just a little problem. Thank you for being with us, guys. We're back. So, yeah, you were talking about emotional sobriety. And so, what does it mean exactly? Like, if I understand correctly, it's just taking a time with yourself and not engaging into the dating world and being with yourself so that you
Uh-huh.
can just cultivate the relationship with who you are and with your deep desires, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, essentially, the easiest way to put it was for me to find a way for inner alignment, meaning truly getting to know what my desires and standards were, and being able to stand behind it energetically, like not being afraid to tell a man, I'm wanting marriage, I'm wanting family, stuff like that. So these were my desires. On top of that, you have, what is it exactly that you are declaring to the world, to yourself, to God? On top of that, you have your actions. And it seems simple. It is simple, but it's not necessarily something that's easy to act on in this aligned way, because a lot of the time people say they want one thing, but they're going to act in all of those different kind of ways that are actually coming into conflict with this one thing that they say that they want. And generally there's a lot of layers of, maybe a part of us is afraid of intimacy, maybe a part of us is addicted to the chase, maybe a part of us is only going to go for an available man because XYZ. There's like a lot of things that can happen that come and hijack whatever it is that is going on in our internal system. And for me, it was to figure out, why is it that I say I want something and then I act in all of those different ways that are not truly in integrity. Like, I pursue a connection that has given me a lot of red flags early on. For some reason, I didn't see the red flags, but there is a reason, you know, because the signs are present, but there's this part of us that either doesn't pick up on it or sees it, but like goes on those like months long rabbit hole with the wrong person, and why. And so that's what I mean by emotional sobriety. It's like having enough discernment, enough groundedness, enough decisional power, because there's those parts of us that are addicted to something. And there's this type of like emotional addiction when you watch yourself almost like in slow motion do something that is not for your highest good, but you do it anyways. And I think that's a moment that's worth like not shaming ourselves, but slowing down and being like, what's actually going on here? So that we can start planting seeds, doing the things in our lives, moving in a way that's actually going to take us towards where we want to be.
Absolutely. And it takes this deep listening
Uh-huh.
and this, I would say, being in that space of self cultivation and almost self mastery because,
Self mastery. Yeah.
yeah, self mastery. I see it as, on um, um, a human's journey, someone is going to walk life and sometimes takes a side path, and you learn, and there's nothing wrong with side path. We all take these, like we
Hmm.
go there and we're like, where, what, why am I here? So I'm coming
Yeah.
back and I'm coming back and I'm coming back to my center. Um, but there's a point where in your life you start to know these side path and you're like, I
Exactly.
have the choice and I know that. Do I choose to go there? Do I choose to now honor what it's deep within,
Hmm.
and to actually now walk life with this trust with creator, with
Hmm.
God, source, however you want to call it, that it's those things are going to come to you, but there is a level of surrender that we need um, to be in,
Cultivate.
to
Yeah.
cultivate exactly
Yeah.
for that.
I I love what you said about how there's no mistake, because there really isn't, and it's a lot more empowering to see it that way. Like all of my different dating experiences, like no matter how painful they were, sometimes I don't see any of it as a mistake because it's what I needed to see those parts of myself play out, to see those patterns, and sometimes we need to put the reps in, to actually be able to see it clearly. Um and I believe that we're going to play out something, like life is going to give us the opportunity until we actually like learn the lesson or alchemize the thing, until we're free from that pattern. So it's always an opportunity to refine the thing. It's like, oh, well, you haven't fully understood what's going on. So let me bring you more so that it can be clear enough so that you can learn exactly what is it that you want. And oftentimes we're going to learn what we want through experiencing a lot of what we don't want. And that's also part of the journey.
Hmm. Absolutely. Such a wild path. It was such a beautiful journey, too.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So I want to speak about the term divine union,
Mm.
divine union, mystical love. They're often used, right? And they can feel sometime um, far away or hard to grasp. So I'd love to hear from you your lived experience. Um, what does this type of love feel like in the body, in your daily life, right?
Mm. Hmm. I feel like for those very vast, intangible, like spiritual concepts, um, there's a lot of um, semantic problems because we don't always necessarily know what is it that we're even talking about. And where when we hear divine union and we only project that on another person, um, and it's a little bit funny to hear myself say those things because I would hear other people say that years ago, and I'd be like, "Yeah, like cut the crap," like we all want love, we all want love in another person, and that is true, that is so true. And divine union, for me, it's three different things that are essentially all the same thing. It's the union within ourselves. So it's what we started talking, like what we started this podcast with, this journey of internal harmonizing and balancing and really finding ourselves. You know, some people talk about balancing the yin and the yang, like whatever we want to call it. Um, Divine union is union with God, because at the end of the day, it's what we're all looking for. It's this sense of wholeness. It's this reunification from the original separation, right? It's reaching those state of consciousness where we are accessing this inner channel that is infinite. um and it's so much clearer for me to talk about this now, because I am married to the man that I love, and I know that he's the source of so much of joy and fulfillment. And he also does not replace God. You know, he doesn't replace this inner sense of wholeness, and that's something that I need to keep cultivating. And then, of course, we have union, heroes gamos, you know, union through consecrated marriage with someone in this type of sealed container that for me really represents a space that is both something through which we can birth something bigger than the sum of both of us, whether it is our work and shared mission or legacy and future family and the way we want to serve together. And it's also a sort of like dojo training ground for our spiritual evolution, like his and mine and ours together, because you are going to be in front of someone who is a mirror for you, who is going to be a mirror in all the best, wonderful ways, you know, and all the things that you love about yourself that feel good. And there's like this creational power, and it's so magical at times. And it's going to also show you all the places where you still need to grow. So it's going to suck sometimes. It's going to be very challenging because you are witness 24/7 by someone, and that's amazing. That's what we want. But it's also, I know that for me, there are many parts of me that feel very exposed and feel very uncomfortable with this idea of all of a sudden there's someone that sees the deepest, darkest places in me. And there's also all the moments where I want to criticize him, where I feel pissed off, where I feel like my needs are not being met. Because again, that's a reflection of the places inside of me where I'm lacking grace for myself. Because we are going to, as humans, we're always going to do this thing of like projecting on the closest person, right? Whenever there's something going on internally. So it's this constant, like you are in this thing that it's going to bring up all of your parts for it to be alchemized. And it's the beauty of it, but it's also the challenge of it. And yeah, that's what divine union with another person is for me. It's a place where you truly get to um grow spiritually through the joy and through the challenges.
Yeah, I loved when you shared that it's a dojo.
Mhm.
Yeah, wow.
It is a dojo.
Hmm. Yeah, it feels like marriage when it's approached consciously. It's like it is actually it is a rite of passage
Yeah.
into a new dimension of yourself.
Uh,
And yeah, this is a threshold that is deeply must be deeply transformative.
yeah.
Oof. For
Yeah.
both, you know. Wow.
Yeah. But it can be confusing too, especially when we have an idea of what it's supposed to look like that is very rooted in all sorts of fantasy, which is normal, especially when we spend so many years like wishing for a partnership, and we have this idea of what the man is going to look like and how we're going to feel 100% of the time. So I think that there's like a rightful moment of like, oh wow, I'm still going to be dealing with all of my stuff and all of my shadows even inside of that. Yeah, sometimes putting a little bit less um pressure on the idea that what union or marriage is supposed to look like, and letting the messiness exist, letting ourselves um, experience the seasons that are like really juicy and exciting, and also the seasons that are meant to reshape maybe some of our identity and that are um yeah, not easy for our ego or our human. And there's a someone that asked me this question at some point, like, okay, but so how do you discern between the relationships that are going to trigger some things and be messy at points, but are ultimately here to be part of this spiritual evolution, and the relationships that are more like quote unquote karmic, that are just going to be replaying trauma loops and are just going to be dramatic through and through. And I wanted to touch on that because it's a very important distinction. And sometimes I feel like we justify relationships that are just not for us or that are just painful, um, because we're like, no, but I'm working on myself, I'm growing spiritually, etc. And for me, the simplest answer to this is this connection bringing you closer to your wholeness and to your essence, or is it taking you further away from it? And that's where the knowledge of self is so important. And that's where this whole chapter of inner union is so important, because it's so much easier to know what exactly we want, what are our deepest desires, what are the standards, like, what am I about? What are the things that are really for me? What am I standing for? Because when we get into a relationship, especially women, because we have again this like natural biological impulse to be very adaptable sometimes, we can lose ourselves a little bit. And we can sometimes convince ourselves that there's something that we're okay with or that we want and that we're open to, when um, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're like fooling ourselves to try to make something work. And when we go down that rabbit hole for long enough, we wake up one day, we're like, wait, this is actually not me, or not something that feels like a true heart desire of mine.
Hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And would you share a bit about what practices you have been cultivating on your journey so that you can hear fully yourself, amongst the noise and the chaos, the
Yeah.
external world? Like, what have been really helpful for you? And also, I saw you went to a meditation retreat, Vipassana. How was
Mm,
it for you? I'm curious about all of like these like strong practices, or do you do something every day,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Um, well, like I was saying, it was the repetition of the experiences, and really just practicing self-awareness very deeply. For a few years, I was journaling a lot, and I was doing this practice that um, where I was like talking with my inner child. So I called her Little A, and I would sit down and I would like kind of channel her, like really get in touch with her. And the stuff that she started telling me were wild. We all think that we are in touch with our inner child, but when we like really sit down and create this intention, we're going to start channeling parts of our psyche that sometimes we didn't even realize existed. And for example, there was a whole period where I realized my inner child was really mad at me. Like there was a lot of anger that started coming through, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that was there. And for a while, it was a daily practice, and I felt like it was so necessary for me to recreate this connection between my adult self, or like my higher self, and my inner child, and recreate that trust. And that was part of my self knowledge um, practice, I will say. Um, Another thing is, and that was a little bit later on the journey. That was a few months before I met my husband. And you mentioned it briefly, when like those different steps, and when I decided to move from California to Texas, because it made no sense, but I had this internal feeling that I was supposed to be there. um yeah, through this awareness, I started also seeing where, like, some things that were not in alignment, some things in my life that were um hurting me on a regular basis, like some relationships, some, yeah, pieces that kept me um stuck in old versions of me, or just ways that I really needed to liberate myself. And this was hard because, there's so much grief that comes with that, when you need to end, like for me, one of them was like ending a career, for example, or ending some relationships with people that I was really, really close to. That's extremely hard. It's it's very confronting. There's like an immense sense of loss. And moving to a different state was part of that process. And at the same time, with all of those steps, I felt like I was coming closer and closer to who I truly was. And I was gaining a lot of confidence in myself and trust in myself. It's like my inner child started taking me seriously. My integrity came more and more into alignment. I i felt like I was starting to become someone that I could really depend on. And if you don't have this like internal foundational structure, it's like everything else is going to be wobbly. So that was really, really important. It was more important than having a daily meditation practice or whatever. It's like the steps that you take that makes you feel like you can trust yourself, like you can love yourself because you do the things that are the best for you. This was by far the most important. And I think that everything else was a byproduct of that, because when I removed all the things that were not me, I started hearing better. That's when I started hearing, through my internal intuition system, through my womb, move to Austin. And I didn't know why. And I was like, I think the person I'm supposed to be with is going to be there. And I don't know, but I was at this point where I felt very complete with California, and it felt right. It felt like a blank new canvas and a place where I could explore who this new version of me, who was emerging, was. And yeah, and I did it. And it was all those small steps of, um, I want to say, bravery, doing those things that were very scary, and where um, you go against everything that makes sense, even sometimes against the advice of very, very close people, people that care about you. And there was a point where a lot of people in my life, like family and stuff, really were like concerned about me, thought that I was going insane. Um, and uh, that was a difficult chapter, because you do question, like, am I like losing myself here? But you keep following this red thread that's telling you, like, no, no, you're good, go there. But yeah, that, talking about surrender.
Mm. When it's really hard to make sense with our
Hmm.
rational mind, but it's like the call. It's beyond the mind. It's stronger. It's like it's hard
Yeah,
to understand it.
yeah, and it really has to do with how strong your connection with God, with a higher power is, with your guides. And again, that was something that I cultivated for years, um, without necessarily a specific practice, just gaining more and more trust throughout all of the micro miracles of life. Whenever you notice the things where the dots are starting to connect, it's like making this conscious effort to notice the places where you're actually being held, where you're like, oh, okay, I like this was miraculous in this small or big way. There's so many, like, we're so protected, we're so held. And when we start really, like, coming with this mindset of knowing that, it starts happening more and more. um And the last point that I wanted to touch on, in terms of, like, what are the things that I did that really helped me, like, find my center and hear so much better what I was supposed to do, was this sort of, like, vow of celibacy that I took, really for myself, where I was like, I want to clear my field for a while. I want to, yeah, like, what happens if I remove everything that comes in that might blur the signal? So that's the few months, like the 6 months before I met my husband, where I was really not interested in dating, where I was super mindful with everything I consumed on all levels. So what I ate, the media that I consumed, and it was like very much my nun phase. And that was like my intentional void. And something was just, yeah, it came from this really deep desire to go in a sort of cave. And it felt good. It felt pretty intense, but it just felt like something so necessary for me. And it's like the deeper I went into this, yeah, into this, I'm saying dark void, but not dark in the sense of, distress. It just felt like a place of gestation, of creation. And it's funny because we were going into winter around that time, and I found this little cottage that was like close to the city, but yet in the woods somehow. And it was so perfect for this for this chapter of my life. And yeah, that's where, like, literally in my environment, um I toned the noise of everything down. And like you were saying before, the sort of like peak peak moment of that was this meditation retreat that I had planned for myself. um and for those listening that don't know about vipassana, it's a meditation technique, and you're essentially cut from the world for 10 days, where you meditate like 11 hours a day, and you can't bring a book or you can't journal. It's really like you and your mind stripped bare, fully for 10 days. And I wanted to see what happened if I removed everything else. And my intention going into it, I was like, I just want to find God. And yeah, and the funny part, of course, the irony of this is that that's the place where I ended up finding my husband.
Wow.
So,
It's I remember the story that you shared, and I remember this moment when you arrive at the Vipassana center and it was not the
mhm.
right place. It
Oh
was
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so that's the miracles that I was talking about before, when you really start looking at what's going on. And like, if you tried to make it happen, you couldn't come up with it with your own mind. and and truly, like, this is super cheesy, but I can't stand more behind this quote of like, the things that are meant for you can't miss you, because really they can't. um And the last thing that I was looking for when I planned this meditation retreat was to like meet a person there. Um, but yeah, and it's a whole process. You have to send an application to a center, and then sometimes there's a wait list, and you have to do it months in advance. And so I had my spot to this one center, and I had prepared for this all of those weeks leading up to it. And I'm very organized. My typology is like, I have everything set up in my phone, and I know where I'm going, and my bag is packed in advance, all the things. And somehow I drove to the wrong center. And when I got there, they were like, we're so sorry, you're not supposed to be here. It was a center that was like 4 or 5 hours drive away. And so it's like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Should I drive back? Do I need to not do this? And does I mean I'm gonna need to like wait for a few more months, etc. I was like very distraught. um but then I remembered, okay, surrender, maybe there's a reason. And that's when I waited a few hours, because they were like, okay, just sit down here. We're going to see if we can figure out something. And someone canceled at the last minute. And so they come to me and they're like, you can take room 22. And for me, that was just a very meaningful moment, because throughout, my ups and downs and my spiritual journey, anytime there was some type of sign, like 22 is my lucky number. And it was always a sort of like, yeah, inside joke with myself, where whenever I saw 22, I knew I was supposed to pay attention. So I almost bursted in tears when they told me that, because I was like, I don't know why, but I think I'm at the right place. I think like my spirit guides or someone wants me to know that I'm safe and I'm held, and um there's something for me here. And again, I didn't know that it had anything to do with meeting someone. I just thought it was a potent um like pit stop on my spiritual journey, and I was really excited to learn this meditation technique. And the whole experience was super transformative. Um, but yeah, the fact that I drove to the wrong center, the woman who canceled last minute, she came on the last day of the retreat. And we met and we became friends. And she's the one who somehow got everybody's phone numbers at the center. And, it's like 100 people, and decided to host a little reunion a few weeks later, with some of the people that were at that retreat. And at that reunion, my husband was there. So we didn't get to meet at the meditation. I mean, it's a silent meditation, and men and women are in different areas. But yeah, we met through this whole like internal inner workings of synchronicities. And yeah, when I saw him at that little reunion where we all meditated together, um, I saw him, and oh, before that, I started having really weird. Um, it was not really visions; it was more internal knowings, almost like I was hearing whispers of, I don't know, I just knew that I was about to meet someone, and I was getting little clues of what he looked like and what he felt like. It very precise details, very weird things like the type of car he drove and exactly what height he was, like really strange things.
Hmm.
Um and a few days later we go to that reunion, and I saw him, and there was just something in me that was like, yeah, it makes zero sense, but I think I'm going to marry this person.
Wow. Wow, so divinely orchestrated.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, thank you for sharing.
Uh-huh.
And so then after you both met, I'm curious about like how did you get into this relationship, this marriage actually? Like did you
Uh,
spoke about it directly? How was it? I'm curious about it.
yeah. Yeah. Um, that's a great question, because, like, okay, well, what happens after you meet someone that you don't know and you have this intuition that you're supposed to get married, right? Because you also don't want to come across like a complete freak, right?
Mhm.
And there was, so the first few months, especially the first month of our relationship, was kind of hard for me because I was dancing between those two parts of me, the part that could see the potential and what, like, this internal knowing, and I really really didn't want to lose myself in a fantasy, because I didn't know if that was real or if it was just like my own longing to be in partnership. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't, and I didn't want to hijack like the real connection that was happening through, yeah, some fake like romanticizing that, as women we can do so easily. So I was very mindful of that, and I was like, I have this man in front of me who I don't know. Like, we've met two times at this point. I have no clue who he is, and I really need to stay rooted in reality here. And for a while I was dancing between those two things, which was, again, very like a little bit of a mind fuck sometimes. And we spoke pretty openly towards the very beginning around, he told me on our first date, it feels like we've met before. There was something that felt a little bit like different about that connection. And I told him, like, yeah, before I met you, I started having those weird visions about someone, and like, I don't know. And there was also because I had been in this vortex of preparing myself for union. I was also very upfront with that. I was like, I'm not really dating casually. Um I'm not being physical with anybody until I know that um that there's some type of very intentional commitment here. And again, he was very respectful of that. Um and the first month was interesting because we started getting deeper into this connection that felt special, that felt different. And a month in, um, he started pulling pulling back a little bit, which immediately triggered parts in me of, panic, the all of the fear of abandonment and stuff like that. Those never left me, but it's just that because there had been so many moments in my past where I would freak out and I would cling and I'd be like, "Oh no, please." I was really not down to do that anymore. And it was this double positioning of I'm absolutely not going to do that, meaning I'm going to stay very rooted within myself. And at the same time, I'm going to keep my heart open. And I went to a friend of mine with this actually in a moment of, yeah, just not feeling good about the whole thing. And she told me, keep your field open as long as it's true. And if he's meant to rise to the occasion, he will. And I was like, yes, this feels this feels correct. This feels like I'm respecting myself, and I'm also giving him space to figure out whatever is going on. Um, but at that point, I was very detached from the connection. I was like, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe like all of this intuition and whatnot. It might be it. It might be not. You know, um, I I can't I can't. How do you say? I can't impose my own story on this connection. I need to let it be whatever it needs to be. And I remember like we were on the phone and he was talking to me about his doubts. And he was like, I don't really know where I'm supposed to go in my life right now, or if I'm supposed to be in a relationship. And I didn't know in that moment that it was just his own process, his doubts and his human catching up with the bigness of that connection that we're just, yeah, having a moment of resurfacing, which I've learned now that it's very rightful, especially with men when there's like this type of, yeah, this magnitude of a connection. Um and I told him on the phone, it's okay. I think it was one of the first times where I felt a man pulling back, and I didn't feel anger towards him. I didn't feel the need to cling to anything, and I didn't feel anger. And there was just a deep respect for whatever was real in that moment, a deep respect for my standards, because I was not willing to play into a like push and pull dynamic, and a deep respect for his process. And I told him, like, it's okay. Maybe we're just meant to be friends. Like, we'll see. And it's because I was able to hold myself in such a way through his process that actually made him want to commit to me. And right after that, he actually came back really, really strong. And that's when things got really serious between us. Um, yeah, that was again another another process of deep surrender.
And so, when did you get married after these, after meeting?
We we met early 2024, and he proposed in October of that year. So about 6 or 8 months
Mhm.
after we started dating. And we actually got married legally in November, but we had our wedding ceremony and got married, quote unquote, officially in April of 2025. So a little bit over a year after we met. Mhm.
Yeah, I want to talk about, um, marriage as spiritual covenant, because yeah, I feel it's all of your story brings a fresh and deep perspective about marriage as not just a role of a role or a legal like agreement or something on paper, but like a really like spiritual union, spiritual covenant. And
Yeah.
I could see that. And yeah, um, I'd love to hear about, maybe you shared a little bit about it already, but like what this marriage is like means more than just
Mm,
like, signing a paper, for
huh.
you and for both of you.
Yeah.
And also how does this union supports you, both of you, in right now, today, in the beauty that I feel you're co-creating with him. And I see you
Yeah.
have a business, or I'm not sure about it, but yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Well, first of all, the funny thing is that so we got married in front. For me, it's like we got married in front of the state, and then we got married in front of God. And when we did the legal marriage, we didn't feel so much of an energetic shift. It felt more or less the same in our relationship, and it's when we did the spiritual marriage in front of our friends, in front of our family, and brought this really intense intention of it being protected by God, by spirit. um First of all, during the ceremony, the transmission, like I felt it, our friend who married us felt it really strongly. There was just like something happened. And I think for anybody that's really sensitive to energy, or can feel when there's this type of transmission, it's very obvious, it's very felt. And it's after our April wedding that things started to feel different. And what felt different was, first of all, it felt so much more solid. It felt like, okay, now there's something that is sealed and protected, almost like there was a dome around us. Um, and the funny part is that because it felt so strong and so solid and so safe, that's where our like deepest part of us started coming out, like deeper shadows, deeper, like immature parts, or things that started bringing like more tension or more conflict, because it's like all of a sudden those parts that felt like it was unacceptable for them to be seen before, well, now it's protected, now it's closed, now we're here, we have agreed that we're here, we're doing the work together, like through and through, right? And so it does create the space for more stuff to start coming out. And it's funny because in the Vipassana tradition, so this meditation technique, the idea is that by bringing the pure light of consciousness, you're essentially just feeling your body through and through. And the concept is like all of our stuff, like all of our traumas, all of our woundings, they call it impurities in the tradition. It starts coming out, and it's called sanskaras. Sankaras? Yeah. And it's because we put our intention on it with an equanimous mind. So, with this like leveled, loving presence, that the darkness, the impurities can start coming out to be liberated. And in a way, it feels like marriage acts, yeah, has a similar effect. It's like now that you're under this dome and that is being held by spirit, and we have fully committed to each other, there's those darker parts of us that can start coming out to be alchemized. And that's where, in a way, that's where the real stuff starts. That's where we can start building, we can start going um deeper into real authenticity. Like, this is me, all of me. And when there's more authenticity, there's more intimacy. And so that's been a beautiful process. Like, as challenging as it's been sometimes, that's also where, that's the stuff that get me excited to be with someone for many, many years, because it's like, wow, how deep can we go? How real can we get?
Hmm.
um yeah, so everything is different. And of course it's creating a teamwork, an ecosystem where we're both contributing in different ways. um and I feel like that's also the beauty of meeting someone that feels like a true match, meaning someone that really comes and complements you in your superpowers, in your like energetics, like in terms of what you're bringing in that ecosystem, because we're so complementary. And so we now work together on his business, and we co-facilitate retreats together, and that really allowed me to go into my own mission and my own business of mentoring women, because now I'm supported in all those different ways, and I'm not worried about survival anymore. So there's just like spaciousness, like entire rooms that open in my life that I haven't been fully able to explore before. So yeah, it's very creational.
Hmm. Wow. And so now you're a mentor in feminine spaces. So
Uh-huh.
you've birthed the Empress Way, Empress Way,
Empress Way. Yeah.
Empress Way. So what is your mission around it? How would you describe the Empress Way and what you do
Mm.
with women?
I would say that the two main things are around helping women really come back home to themselves, like all those pieces that we've been talking about around getting to know ourselves, authenticity, but also holding ourselves, like holding our standards, holding this inner alignment, integrity, being able to take space and not shrink when we're facing uncomfortable situations and things like that. So this whole like feminine empowerment or leadership or whatever we want to call that, and the piece of union, whether it is inner union or union with a beloved, and really helping women deeply prepare for union or deepen if they are in a relationship, but create this functional, satisfying love that is really oriented towards legacy building. Like we're here to serve something greater. We're here to like change the world together type of thing. And the whole, the name of the Empress Way came from all those years of being on my own, and at some point really being in this paradigm, you know, me being heartbroken and feeling like I had to be very self-sufficient. And I was like, okay, let me figure out all the ways of being free, like financially free, and let me build my empire and all the things. And I mean, so much of it was rightful and beautiful, and also so much of it was coming from a place of wounding, a place of mistrust in men. And by trying to build my empire and not depend on anybody for so long, it was very much not sustainable, and I burned myself out very deeply. And there's a point where I came across the, you could say, like the feminine awakening path of, okay, what does it truly mean to exist in this world as a woman, and coming a lot more face to face with the reality of my biology and the beauty of my design as a woman, and still wanting to build an empire, but being like, what does it mean to build an empire the Empress way? And around that time, the archetype of the Empress kept coming in my life in all those different ways, like through my tarot readings, but also in like random little pockets. And she felt like the ultimate feminine archetype of like feminine grace and vitality. You know, in tarot, she's literally the pregnant woman. So she represents fertility, but not just in the physical sense, although it can, but the fertility of the mind and spirit. She's the one that's like birthing worlds. And yeah, it's almost like she's been a beacon on my journey. And um, yeah, it's something that I started using in my personal work. And yeah, has just been great to create a whole program around that.
Hmm. So beautiful. And how can people join you on your Instagram or?
Yeah, my Instagram is a great way. I don't have a official website and page yet. I will eventually, but I've been very much like taking my time with it and enjoying taking my time. But yeah, contacting me on Instagram is definitely a really good way to do that, and also getting to know a little bit of my work and my essence.
Beautiful. So I will put the link in the description for you guys.
Awesome.
Um, I feel quite complete. I want to ask you, is there anything else you feel called to share that we haven't touched on in this conversation?
Hmm. I feel like there's so many different ways, different things that we could talk about, but at the same time, um, yeah, nothing on the top of my mind.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel we've been pretty deep into a few questions, but um, yeah, you've been expressing so beautifully how you went through this incredible journey of self
Uh-huh.
union, inner union, and external union, and providing so much insight and embodied wisdom to people. So thank you for
Mm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think if there's one thing that I would add is like the desire that was birth to create a mentorship program for women came from that woman. It came from that moment of I almost like something broke open in my heart because I realized that this happiness that I was experiencing with Alex, my husband, um, it wouldn't feel real until I helped other people get there. And it's almost like we can only touch it when we can share it with other people. And because I've been on this journey for many years and I know how challenging it can be sometimes, um, there was really a desire of helping and serving in any way that I can. Um, and this was especially interesting because like I shared with you before we started this podcast. I'm not super comfortable sharing my voice and being seen, and just watching the impact that it's had on some women is what's like encouraging me to keep sharing this story and to keep putting myself out there, because I believe that this empowering of women and coming back into union, this is what changes the world. Because when we, and I share a little bit about that on my social media too, how I believe that the standards that women hold in romantic love is the thing that um, inspires men to rise, to step forward, because that's how the story of humanity has played out for all of all of the story. Wait,
It's got shivers.
the story of humanity has always played out in terms of the things that men have had to do and become to win the love of a woman. And so when we embody those archetypes that ask for more of them, like more in the best way, more in terms of like their highest spiritual potential, we are the gatekeepers of civilization. This is how we change the world. Like, this is my, I feel like most people have something that they stand for or they feel really strongly about, some type of like social activism or whatever. And for me, this is that. This is helping women remember who they are and remembering through their desires, through their creational power, what exactly that they want to create in their life with their men and through their future family, maybe, because that is what shapes civilization in a very tangible way.
Yeah. It becomes all of what you do on your personal journey. And when you come together, it becomes the fertile soil
Exactly.
for like a healthy future for the future generations. You give that example to your future children and to others around you. So, yeah,
Exactly. Like when you have a union of two people that are deeply doing the work, that are on their path, that are, here to help each other awaken, literally. Imagine the children that are born from that. Imagine the type of humanity that we are creating.
absolutely. There is something that comes to me right now. Is I've been studying holistic. I'm a holistic doula, so
Oh, nice.
yeah, I've had a beautiful, beautiful a workshop, a training with my mentor. Her name is Wapio. She's amazing. She holds so much wisdom. She's, I think, yeah, she's an elder and holds deep wisdom and a lot of experience in the field um, as a birth keeper and a midwife. And so she was sharing that in the last, I would say, 2 years, she has been noticing a difference um, around in the placenta of the mother when the baby come to are being born. So basically, before when you see the placenta, you see the umbilical cordon, and it's often like in the middle in some way. This is like this is something that has always been like that. But in the last years, she noticed something with one of her friend that is also a birth keeper.
Yeah.
They noticed that the umbilical cordon uh, started to be closer to the edge of the placenta. So she was meditating on this. What does that mean, right? And they had a conversation with her friend, and what came to them is that basically when the umbilical cordon was more in the middle, it meant that the human that is going to come on earth is going to have a certain karmic path until this person comes into union in wholeness,
Uh,
right? So
yeah.
this person is going to experience things, different things, to learn from life and to come into union. But now some children are being born already on the edge. They don't need to go to this whole karmic path. They come on
Mm,
earth knowing who they are.
wow.
Yes, this is really happening.
Wow.
And so, I believe that these type of relationship of divine unions, and are birthing those children.
Yeah. And imagine how much further you can go when you come on Earth already knowing who you are.
It's like you're a threat to the whole system, right? These children are here to change the world. And I can see, like, when I see children sometimes, I can see them like they talk about, like, I've a sister, her name is Sarah, her um not her daughter, her, what's the name in English? Her son. He was sharing that last time, no, before, he was sharing that before he was born, he had a friend like in the spirit realm, and that this friend told him that they were going to meet in this realm. And so
Mm,
recently he was telling that this friend, his name is Zachary, he was born in Morocco.
mm,
Like he was here and they were going to meet or something like that. I'm like, this is the type of things that we need to get used to,
yeah.
and because it's happening.
Yeah. And I love what you just said about how those type of unions are birthing those children who are already like more awakened in some ways, because for me that's the whole goal. That's the vision, right? And it's like there's different levels of vision, and it starts with this longing, like feminine longing to be in love, which is a beautiful thing. And it's almost, it's coming from maybe a lower part of the vision, and there's a higher vision if you go all the way up. Like, this is why we're doing all of that. It's like union is for you, and it's also for so much more than you.
Yeah.
There's a bigger agenda here, and I think connecting to the energy of that vision can also be something really beautiful when we are on that type of path. And to remember who we are, to remember our desires and standards, and to remember why we're doing all of this, because it's not just for us.
It is definitely not. And I feel a deep sense of gratitude to have the chance to navigate on social media and find women like you know, that are
Mm,
sharing very like similar perspective as me. Like this, what you were just sharing about the knowing inside of you that you will birth children that will support humanity. Like I feel the same. I know it's not. I know it. It's a
mhm.
knowing,
Yeah.
and there was once upon a time on my path, I could feel that. I could feel that fully, but I was doubting it. I was like, where does this thought coming from? Who am I to think that, you know?
Mhm.
But the more I could trust it, the more I could meet other sisters that are sharing very similar stories and perspectives. So
Yeah, exactly. And
it's
it's
like
like, if we're delusional, let's all be delusional together.
yeah, let's do it together. I'm down for it. Yes, absolutely.
Mm, I love that.
Beautiful. Hmm. Thank you so much. Thank you for this incredible conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was such an honor and a pleasure.
Hmm. Hmm. Beautiful. Perfect. So I'm going to close the conversation. Thank you,
Hmm.
everyone, for tuning in with us, for listening to her story. And I hope that this conversation brought you some nuggets that you maybe need right now in your life, in your romantic life, or in your personal journey. And yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Until next time.